Syria's interim government pledges rule of law after Assad's overthrow. US announces its new military aid package for Ukraine. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Syria's interim government has vowed to institute the rule of law after the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad. The new government spokesman Obaida Arnaud said the country's constitution and parliament would be suspended during a 3-month transition. Arnaud said a judicial and human rights committee will be established to examine the constitution and then introduce amendments. He noted that all those who committed crimes against the Syrian people will be judged in accordance with the law. Commenting on religious and personal freedoms, Arnaud said the new government respects religious and cultural diversity in Syria. Assad fled Syria after a lightning offensive spearheaded by the Hayat al-Tahrir Sham group and its allies, which brought a sudden end to 5 decades of rule by his clan. Many Syrians across the country and around the world erupted in celebration after enduring nearly 14 years of war that killed more than 500,000 people and displaced millions. United Nations investigators said they have compiled secret lists of 4,000 perpetrators of serious crimes in Syria since the early days of the country's civil war. Meanwhile, United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres is deeply concerned over extensive violations of Syrian sovereignty and by Israeli strikes on the country.
The Secretary General is deeply concerned by the recent and extensive violations of Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Secretary General is particularly concerned over the hundreds of Israeli airstrikes on several locations in Syria, stressing the urgent need to de-escalate violence on all fronts throughout the country. The Secretary General stresses that the 1974 disengagement of forces agreement remains in force, condemning all actions that would be inconsistent with the agreement.
Guterres urged the parties to the agreement to uphold their obligations under the instrument, including by ending all unauthorized presence in the area of separation and refraining from any action that would undermine the ceasefire and stability in Golan Heights. Since President Bashar al-Assad's ouster, Israel, which borders Syria, has sent troops into a buffer zone on the east of Golan Heights in a move the United Nations said violates a 1974 armistice. A series of Israeli airstrikes has killed at least 58 people, including 12 guards securing and 8 trucks. The latest bloodshed came despite growing optimism that negotiations for a ceasefire and hostage release deal might finally succeed, with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan saying that the regional context had changed in favor of an agreement. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency spokesman Mahmoud Basal said 7 guards were killed in a strike in Rafah in southern Gaza, while another attack left 5 guards dead in nearby Khan Yunis. He said the Israeli occupation once again targeted those securing the 8 trucks, adding that the vehicles carrying flour were on their way to UNRWA warehouses. He added that around 30 people, most of them children, were wounded in the 2 strikes. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes on 2 houses near Nusayrat refugee camp in Gaza City killed at least 21 people. Another strike later in the day in the Nusayrat refugee camp killed at least 25 people and wounded 50 others. As diplomacy aimed at ending the war appeared to be gaining pace again, the violence continued. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who met with Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, said he got the sense that the Israeli leader was ready to conduct a deal. The United States has announced a new $500 million package of military aid for Ukraine as Washington races to bolster Kiev before President-elect Donald Trump takes office. It follows a $988 million security assistance package and a separate $725 million package, both announced earlier this month. Trump's November election victory has cast a doubt on the future of American aid for Ukraine. The Republican has said his incoming administration will probably reduce aid to Ukraine. The latest package includes ammunition for precision high-mass rocket launchers, artillery ammunition, drones, armored vehicles, and equipment to protect against chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear attacks, along with other equipment. The outgoing U.S. administration is working to get as much aid as possible to Ukraine before Trump, who has repeatedly criticized U.S. assistance for Kiev and claimed he could secure a ceasefire within hours, takes over. Trump's comments have triggered fears in Kiev and Europe about the future of U.S. aid and Ukraine's ability to withstand Russian attacks. On a related note, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump said he disagrees very vehemently with Ukraine firing American-supplied missiles deep into Russia. However, Trump insisted he will not abandon Ukraine, as U.S. support for Kiev would be a key leverage in efforts to bring the war to a close. Outgoing President Joe Biden's administration has supplied long-range Army tactical missile system missiles to Ukraine, which can penetrate inside Russia, provoking angry retaliation from Moscow, which has responded with its new hypersonic missile. Trump said he disagrees very vehemently with sending missiles hundreds of kilometers into Russia, saying that the measure was just escalating the war and making it worse. According to publicly available data, Army tactical missile system missiles have a maximum range of 300 kilometers. Pressed on his support for Ukraine, which has been lukewarm with the Republican questioning the cost of backing Kiev, Trump said he would use Washington's backing as leverage to bring the war to a close. Russian news agencies have jumped on Trump's comments, drawing attention to the Republicans' apparent criticism of Kiev's approach. NATO Chief Mark Rutte has issued a stark warning to turbocharge defense spending, saying European nations are not prepared for the threat of any future war with Russia. Russia's war in Ukraine has jolted the Western military alliance to strengthen its eastern flank and ramp up spending. However, despite increases in defense budgets, NATO countries still do not match Moscow's arms production. The former Dutch Prime Minister insisted there was no imminent military threat, but said NATO needed to move faster and fiercer to bulk up defenses and stave off the risk of future conflict.
We are not ready for what is coming our way in 4 to 5 years. Danger is moving towards us at full speed. We must not look the other way. We must face it. What is happening in Ukraine could happen here too. And regardless of the outcome of this war, we will not be safe in the future unless we are prepared to deal with danger.
He stressed that it is time to shift to a wartime mindset and turbocharge defense production and defense spending. NATO's 32 countries last year set a minimum level for defense spending of 2% of gross domestic product. This year, 23 members are set to reach that figure, but Rutte insisted the target needs to be increased. The plea for action comes as Russia is making gains on the front line in Ukraine against Kiev's fatigued forces. The World Health Organization has voiced alarm at recent attacks in Sudan's war-ravaged Darfur region, which have killed dozens of people and injured many more. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said the most recent attacks in Kabkabia, North Darfur, that claim at least 18 lives and injured hundreds of people are shocking. The pro-democracy emergency lawyers group, which has been documenting human rights abuses during the conflict, said an airstrike took place on the town's weekly market, where residents from various nearby villages had gathered to shop, resulting in the death of more than 100 people and injury of hundreds. There were among at least 176 people killed in 2 days of army and paramilitary strikes across Sudan this week. Both the Army and the Rapid Support Forces, who have been at war since April last year, have been accused of indiscriminately targeting civilians and deliberately bombing residential areas. Sudan's civil war has killed tens of thousands of people and uprooted 12 million. Nearly 9 million of those are displaced within Sudan, most in areas with devastated infrastructure and facing the threat of mass starvation. Tedros warned that health facilities in Darfur are barely managing to meet health needs with non-functional equipment and limitations of medical supplies.
Suruhanjaya Integriti Agensi Penguatkuasaan mengendali aduan orang ramai dan menjalankan siasatan mengenai salah laku pegawai penguatkuasa dan agensi penguatkuasaan dengan tegas, telus dan efisien. Sila layari www.eaic.gov.my.
Thailand's Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra has marked her administration's first 90 days in office by unveiling an ambitious vision under the campaign 2025, Empowering Thais, a Real Possibility. Paetongtarn reaffirmed her government's commitment to serving the people and building a nation where citizens can thrive with dignity and prosperity. She said the government's mission is to empower citizens, decentralize authority, and create a nation where everyone has the opportunity to prosper with dignity. She added together, both the government and the people will make 2025 a year of progress and hope, laying the foundation for a brighter decade ahead. The Prime Minister outlined efforts to tackle 6 critical structural challenges facing the country, with water management identified as a top priority. Initiatives include combating both flooding and drought through public-private partnerships, dredging canals, and exploring large-scale floodway projects to provide sustainable solutions. She also emphasized a commitment to address air pollution by enforcing stricter anti-burning laws, engaging in cross-border negotiations to combat transboundary haze, and introducing the landmark Clean Air Act. A new World Bank report released this week said that the Philippines' progress in reducing poverty will continue, leading to a drop in poverty incidence this year until 2026. Due to robust economic growth and rising real household incomes, poverty incidence is projected to decrease from 15.5% last year to 13.6% this year, before falling further to 11.3% by 2026. However, the latest Philippines economic update warned that the recurrence of climate events such as tropical cyclones and vulnerability to food price shocks pose risks. The report said that these weather-related shocks have damaged homes and infrastructure and disrupted businesses and livelihoods in the past. The report added that household income vulnerability and vulnerability to climate disaster may undermine the potential for continued poverty reduction. The report further said proactive government measures are crucial to protect poor and vulnerable households, adding that the Philippine authorities are actively adopting policies to mitigate these shocks. The Philippine Statistics Authority said in July that the country's poverty rate declined to 15.5% last year from 18.1% in 2021. Lithuania's new government sworn in pledges Ukraine aid. Lithuania's new centre-left government has sworn in after Parliament approved its program focused on social policy, aid for Ukraine, and defense against neighboring Russia. The program pledges to support Ukraine before and after victory and to assist Kiev in accelerating its EU and NATO membership. It also commits to allocating 0.25% of gross domestic product GDP annually in military support for Ukraine. Lithuania is already one of the top donors to Ukraine relative to its economic size. The government has also vowed to raise the defense budget to at least 3.5% of GDP. The government program also promises measures to increase citizens' incomes, strengthen public health and education systems, and limit the role of private entities in these sectors. The opposition voted against the program, saying there would be no public finance to back up generous pledges. The government, which will be led by Social Democrat Gintautas Palukas, comes after the centre-left's victory in October elections. Palukas said that government members are already planning to visit Ukraine, adding that they need to show communion, solidarity and friendship. The new European Council President Antonio Costa had talks with the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer in London. Costa's maiden visit to Britain came as the two sides pressed to improve their ties after Brexit. They agreed on the vital importance of closer collaboration between like-minded partners at an increasingly volatile time for the world. The two leaders discussed the latest developments in West Asia and agreed on the importance of ensuring a peaceful transition towards long-term political stability in Syria. Costa officially invited the British Prime Minister to join a gathering of the EU's 27 leaders in February focused on defence cooperation. The two leaders also talk about the first EU-UK summit early next year. On Ukraine, they voiced their unwavering commitment to supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes and as intensely as needed. Starmer's Labour Party, which took power in July, has launched a push to reset relations with the EU after years of post-Brexit rancor under previous Conservative governments. He visited Brussels in October to meet European Commission head Ursula von der Leyen, and the two agreed to start talks on improving ties. The European Central Bank has cut interest rates again and hinted at more to come, with President Christine Lagarde saying the beleaguered Eurozone economy was losing momentum as EU and US politics fueled uncertainty. The central bank for the 20 countries that use the euro reduced its key deposits rate by a quarter point to 3% as widely expected. It was the bank's third cut in a row and fourth since June, when it nicked off its current easing cycle. After hiking borrowing costs from mid-2022 to combat runaway energy and food costs, policymakers have turned their attention to lowering rates as inflation eases and the Eurozone economic outlook darkens. While there had been speculation the central bank could opt for a bigger move, it decided to continue at the same pace with a quarter-point reduction. However, Lagarde was clear that the Frankfurt-based institution's concerns now centered on the weakening outlook in the Eurozone following a string of worse-than-expected data. The central bank's updated forecasts highlighted the problem, with the institution cutting its growth estimates slightly for 2024 and the following 2 years to 0.7%, 1.1% and 1.4% respectively. A rash of unexplained drone sightings in the skies above New Jersey has left locals rattled and sent U.S. officials scrambling for answers. Breathless local news reports have amplified the anxious sky gazing and wild speculation interspersing blurry, dark clips from social media with irate locals calling for action. For weeks now, the distinctive lights and whirling rotors of large unmanned aerial vehicles have been spotted across the state west of New York. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said there was no evidence of a threat and that they may be manned aircraft. He also called on lawmakers to expand legislation clamping down on drone operations near airports and other high-risk sites. Meanwhile, the FBI and the Department of Transportation and Homeland Security said in a statement that upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft operating lawfully. They added there were no reports or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. Drones are permitted for both business applications and recreational use, but are regulated by Federal Aviation Administration rules. Next up in sports, Zizia books a semi-final spot in BWF World Tour Finals.
setia Liga Malaysia bersedia untuk berdekatan. Kita bagi setiap pasukan terus tegak berdiri bagi melaksanakan misi mempertahan maruah, mencipta secara setia pertemuan takkan jenta dengan asalkan membuat peluang terus tegakkan satu perjuangan, satu suara akan demi rencana di dada dalam memburu takkan keraguan kekuatan pencahayaan si menembakkan sampai kendaraan.
All right, we'll begin our sports segment with badminton. Malaysian men's singles professional Lee Zija has confirmed his place in the semi-finals after securing his second win in Group A at the 2024 BWF World Tour Finals in Hangzhou, China. The world number 8 continued his impressive form by upsetting Denmark's world number 2 Anders Antonsen in straight sets 21-14, 21-19 in a 47-minute battle at the Hangzhou Olympic Stadium. In the first game, Zija dominated the game and finished it off with a 21-14. However, in the second game, Antonsen raised the intensity to fight back. The 26-year-old Zija staged a thrilling comeback in the second game, rallying from 13-7 and 17-14 deficits to close out the match in straight sets, a result that could prove decisive in the event of a countback to determine the semi-finalists. Zija will next face China's Li Xingfang in his final group match scheduled for today. Earlier, Xingfang edged world number 9 Chou Tianchen of Taiwan 18-21, 21-14, 21-13 in 73 minutes. Still in the World Tour Finals, the hopes of national women's double Pearly Tan and Tina to advance to the semi-finals were dashed when they lost to India's Teresa Jolie and Gayatri Gopichan in the second match of Group A. A spent Pearly Tina, who lost their opening match in 3-game, faced a must-win clash, but they offered only token resistance to Teresa Gayatri, who went on to triumph in 46 minutes. This was Pearly Tina's second defeat in the tournament after also losing to Japanese pair Nami Matsuyama and Chiharu Shida 21-13, 17-21, 18-21 in the first match of Group A on Wednesday. Only the top 2 pairs from each group will qualify for the semi-finals in this season's tournament. Awaiting Pearly Tina in the next match in Group A are tournament seeds Liu Shengshu and Tan Ning from China, who have already secured their semi-final ticket after winning 2 consecutive matches. In European football, second-half substitute Rasmus Højlund scored twice as Manchester United fought back to earn a 2-1 win at Victoria Pleasant in the Europa League. Both teams came into the match with 9 points from 5 Europa League games, and they took time to find their pace. Mate Viadra, a former Watford, West Brom, Reading, Derby and Burnley forward, opened the scoring for the hosts with a close-range finish 3 minutes after half-time. Pavel Soka found Viadra facing an empty net after he had intercepted United goalkeeper Andre Onana's pass inside the box. Højlund levelled on 62 minutes mark, 6 minutes after replacing Marcus Rashford when the Danish striker tapped in Amad Diallo's deflected shot. 2 minutes from time, he beat Pleasant goalkeeper Martin Jetlika again with a clinical finish, turning around his marker after United captain Bruno Fernandes had found him inside the box with a clever free kick. The goal was a wake-up call for United manager Ruben Amorim, who made 3 replacements in its wake, including Højlund. Elsewhere in the Europa League, Tottenham Hotspurs drew 1-1 with Rangers in Glasgow. The hosts sit at the final automatic qualification spot, with the Spurs 1 place below them, with both level on 11 points. A draw somewhat eases the pressure on Spurs boss Ange Postecoglou after his side went into the match with just 1 win in the last 7 outings in all competitions. Rangers took the lead 2 minutes after the interval when Moroccan striker Hamza Igamane continued his fine start to life in Glasgow by netting his 4th goal in as many European outings this season. Captain James Tavernier bent an excellent swinging pass from the right flank beyond the Spurs defence and into the path of Igamane, who finished unerringly at the far post. Substitutes Dominic Solanke and Dejan Kulusevski combined to bring the English side level. With a quarter of an hour remaining, the Swedish wrong-footing the goalkeeper with a cool finish from just inside the box. Fraser Forsters made a vital save from Cyril Dazers to keep Spurs level in the last 10 minutes, and moments later the Rangers striker had a goal disallowed for offside. Swedish prosecutors have closed a rape and sexual assault investigation, saying there was insufficient evidence in a case that local media said involved a French football star Kylian Mbappe, who denied any wrongdoing. The prosecution has declined to name the suspect in the case over the alleged incidents at a hotel in central Stockholm on 10th October. Swedish senior prosecutor Marina Chirakova said in a statement that there has been a designated person suspected on reasonable grounds of rape and 2 cases of sexual assault. However, her assessment was that the evidence was not sufficient to proceed the case. Local media reported in October that the suspect in the case was a French footballer, Kylian Mbappe. Mbappe's representatives said in a statement that the allegations against him were totally false and a slanderous rumor. Following the announcement by the Swedish Prosecution Authority, Mbappe's club Real Madrid said they will not comment on the case. In World Short Course Championships, Canadian swimming star Summer McIntosh powered to her second gold medal in Budapest with a world record in the women's 200 meters butterfly.
Is on target to break it now.
McIntosh won 3 Olympic titles in Paris earlier this year in the 200 meters butterfly, 200 meters medley and 400 meters medley. The 18-year-old superstar swam at 1 minute 59.32 seconds for her second goal of the week to clinch the top spot on the podium. It was McIntosh's second world record and second gold medal of the championships. That record time put her more than a second half and a half ahead of American Regan Smith, who took silver, while Elizabeth Deckers of Australia rounded out the podium. And in a stunner, China's Qing Haiyang clawed back from behind to win the men's 100 meters breaststroke in the final meters of the heat. Qin was trailing Kirill Prigoda and world record holder Ilya Shimanovic, but turned up the gas just in time to edge out Prigoda by just 0.02 seconds and Shimanovic by 0.13 seconds with a time of 55.47 seconds. And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Syria's interim government pledges rule of law after Assad's overthrow. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Syuhaida Arifin. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.